For my music project, I will be talking about the band Indecision. First off, the reason I chose to talk about Indecision today is that my father was actually lucky enough to work with Indecision. He did lights for them and also worked other equipment for about 3 years, spanning from, I think, 1984 to 1987. I mean, I don't really want to offend him with age, so I'll just leave it at that. But let's go on to my thesis. Despite not growing as fast as other members of their industry, Indecision, with its unique instrumental solos, was able to become a successful band with sounds similar to the Grateful Dead. Before I go more in depth on my thesis and more about the band Indecision itself, I'll just give you a little background information. So, Indecision, the band, they grew out of Charlottesville, Virginia. The band members, or the core group, happened to meet when they were around 16 and 17 years old in high school. Funny enough, since they were in Charlottesville, Virginia, most of their gigs when they were young, they performed at parties at the University of Virginia and also theaters around the area. They first started appearing in nightclubs in about 1984. When the band attended college, since they couldn't go too far, they played in areas such as Virginia, the Carolinas, and Washington, D.C. Eventually, they were able to perform in areas such as Bonnaroo, Tennessee, New York City, Atlanta, and New Orleans. They came up in the jam band industry with bands such as Phish, Blues Traveler, and Widespread Panic. However, despite being of the same talent level, they just never made it as big as the other bands that were growing in their industry at the same time. Now, some members of the bands include Aaron Evans, who played the guitar and sang. David Abecken also played the guitar and sang. Chris Dugald played the drums and also performed vocals. And then we had the McChrystal brothers. Sean McChrystal played the bass, while Dan McChrystal worked on sound engineering. Doug Wanamaker joined the band later in about 1989, where he played the keyboard and also participated in some of the vocals. And Chris White played the acoustic guitar and also did vocals, and he joined the band in 1990. Some of the band's famous hits include Just a Little Bit, Take It All In, Marcus Lane, Meet You in the Middle, High Steppin', and Ocracoke. Now, going on to the second part of my thesis, Indecision was a jam band. Most jam bands base their styles off of probably one of the most famous bands of all time, the Grateful Dead. The Grateful Dead is known for their long instrumental solos, and they're also known for making each and every song sound unique. Most jam bands incorporate rock, blues, jazz, and lots of unique lyrics, however, not a lot of lyrics. It's mostly dominated by instrumental solos. Now, we're going to listen to one rendition of Marcus Lane by Indecision, and this is them performing in July 2010 at Charlottesville Pavilion. Here, I want you to specifically listen to the use of the keyboard and also the bass guitar here. A lot of their instrumental work is based off the Grateful Dead, and you will see that later when I play a clip from the Grateful Dead.
Let me tell you about Marcus Lane on flat top, blue out his grave. Oh yeah, driving in his car late Saturday night, ran a red light.
Now, I'm going to play one of the Grateful Dead's most famous songs, Fire on the Mountain. And this is them performing on October 31st, Halloween, in 1980 at Radio City Music Hall.
Long distance runner, what you standing there for? Get up, get on, get out of the door. Play cold music on the barroom floor. Drowning your laughter and dead to the core. There's a thing in the matches that's
Now, as you can tell, both bands sound strikingly similar. That's just a case of Indecision basing their instrumental solos, their use of different instruments, and how they play them is all based off of the Grateful Dead. And most of these jam bands based their styles off of the Grateful Dead. However, despite having a similar sound, Indecision still never managed to take off to the extent of other bands in the industry, such as Phish, Widespread Panic, and Blues Traveler. Though, despite not having tremendous success, they are still successful in their own right, and they still play today. They happen to perform about 10 to 15 times a year, and matter of fact, next week they're performing in both Charlottesville and Richmond. They still happen to write new songs, obviously not as frequently. They do write new songs, but they haven't come out with a new album in the last few years or recent years. And despite the band being over 30 years old, all former members are still currently affiliated with the band. And also, despite their age, they still hold a strong following from back in their heyday between the mid-80s and 90s. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. Here are my sources, and again, an unlisted source happens to be my father. He helped me out tremendously with this project just because of his background knowledge and due to the fact that there's not a lot of information about the band despite their amazing sound. If you have any other questions, feel free to inquire from me over email or talk to me in person. I would love to talk more about Indecision. Thank you so much.